Senator Tammy Duckworth didn't just criticize Trump, she sounded the alarm. In one of the most powerful Senate statements yet, she accused the administration of turning America's military into a weapon against its own citizens.
Senator Duckworth and then Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. President Trump has once again violated the Constitution, states' rights, and Americans' rights by federalizing Illinois National Guard and deploying Texas National Guard troops to Illinois against the wishes of democratically elected officials. Trump insists on misusing the military against his political opponents and people who did not vote for him, not only in Illinois, but in Portland, Los Angeles, D.C., and Memphis. And it must be stopped. Every Democratic member of this committee has called for a hearing on military deployments to American cities. This administration must justify to the American public why it insists on using the military to confront Americans at home. This administration must answer why, if DHS officials in Broadview or LA or Portland were in fact so overwhelmed by protesters, as Trump claims, that they needed military protection, why these same DHS agents were able to shoot at protesters, wounding civilians, incapacitate peaceful protesters, as well as shooting tear gas at over 24 Chicago police officers and propel agents from a helicopter to terrorize an apartment building in the middle of the night. We know deploying the military is not about protecting DHS officials or federal property, because these same officials are escalating their tactics every day to provoke a manufactured crisis to justify sending in the military onto our peaceful city streets. We know this is not about crime fighting, because Trump has literally defunded the police by slashing $800 million in public safety programs. So, what is this about? The president has been clear. He wants to use the military in American cities to crush dissent and erode our constitutional rights instead of protecting and defending them like his oath of office requires. And I am concerned that the nominees testifying here today have been complicit in this administration's militarized assault on American cities and will continue to empower these irresponsible actions. Mr. Young, you were acting general counsel from 20th of January until 31 July of this year, during which time you advised on a series of dangerous and unprecedented decisions to deploy National Guard and active duty troops to American streets, convert military bases to support DHS and house detainees, and appoint military judge advocates to serve as immigration judges, despite them not having the relevant immigration law experience. Now you are being considered to be general counsel for the Army, where you will once again advise on consequential decisions on how to train, equip, and deploy Army National Guard or active duty troops. Mr. Young, have you prepared or approved any legal opinion about authorizing any state's National Guard units to deploy across state lines without the consent of the governor or other leaders in the receiving state? And if so, will you provide it to us?
Thank you, Senator. To answer the question, we have the use of National Guard personnel.
So yes or no? Have you provided that type of an opinion? Yes or no? And will you provide a copy of that advice to us?
Senator, what I have advised my client in the executive branch regarding the execution of executive functions is privileged, and I would, unless my client allows me to share that, I would consider it privileged.
Well, we will work on that. There has also been rhetoric from the president and senior officials painting Democrats and people who disagree with him as enemies. This is a slippery slope. Once you label your fellow Americans as enemies, you can justify using force against them. Mr. Young, if the president or secretary asked you to authorize the military to target civilians within American soil based solely on their political affiliation, would you support it? Yes or no?
No.
Thank you. The president wants to use our military as his personal police force to send troops into American cities to detain civilians on our bases, to intimidate people who dare to disagree with him. That is not defense, that is repression. If we turn the world's finest fighting force against its own people, who will win? Not the American people, not our service members who did not sign up to be used as political props, to be pitted against their fellow Americans, or to waste their precious time patrolling American streets. Only Donald Trump and our global enemies who will exploit our distraction win in this scenario. The United States military defends Americans. It does not police them. It protects our freedoms. It does not suppress them. Mr. Chair, I ask unanimous consent that you, in consultation with the ranking member, schedule an open hearing to receive testimony on this abuse of the military from the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and General Counsel of the Department.
That is not a proper unanimous consent request.
This administration has refused to provide answers to Congress and the American public about its militarization of our streets, refusing to put legal opinions in writing, hiding the faces of DHS officials, and running away when officials exercise their constitutional duty to conduct oversight visits. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Hiding is not something you do when you're proud of your actions. Dodging around direct questions from this oversight body, like you have done today, Mr. Young, it's also not something you do when you're proud of your actions. It's what you do when you know you are wrong. The American people deserve answers. I urge the chairman and my Republican colleagues to hold a meeting immediately.
What we just witnessed from Senator Tammy Duckworth wasn't a mere political statement. It was a warning, one born from experience and deep understanding of what it means to serve and protect the nation. Duckworth's outrage wasn't performative, it was constitutional. When she accused the Trump administration of violating states' rights and misusing the military against American citizens, she was pointing to a crisis that strikes at the heart of democratic governance. The moment when political leaders treat the armed forces not as defenders of the people, but as enforcers of their personal power. Let's be clear about what this is really about. President Trump's decision to federalize the Illinois National Guard and deploy Texas National Guard troops into Illinois wasn't about restoring order or protecting citizens. It was about control, about sending a message that dissent will be met not with dialogue, but with domination. And Duckworth, a combat veteran who literally lost limbs serving this country, is not someone easily silenced by flag-waving rhetoric. She knows firsthand that the military's oath is to the Constitution, not to a man. That's why her anger carried moral weight, because she's seen what it looks like when governments start using their armies as internal police forces. She didn't just challenge the legality of Trump's decision, she challenged its morality. She called out how the administration was misusing the military against its political opponents, pointing to deployments in cities like Portland, Los Angeles, D.C., and now Chicago. Her argument was simple but devastating. When a president uses soldiers to police civilians, it stops being law enforcement. It becomes repression. And she didn't stop there. Duckworth exposed the hypocrisy behind the law and order narrative. Trump, she reminded us, slashed $800 million from public safety programs while claiming to protect Americans from chaos. If this were really about protecting communities, why cut the funding that actually supports police and local safety programs? Why instead militarize city streets and terrorize neighborhoods with helicopters and tear gas? Because, as Duckworth so powerfully put it, this is not about crime fighting, it's about crushing dissent. It's about labeling Americans who disagree as enemies. And history has shown us, the moment a government starts calling its own people enemies, every form of oppression suddenly becomes justifiable. When she pressed Mr. Young, the nominee who advised on these deployments, for a simple yes or no about whether he approved sending Guard troops across state lines without a governor's consent, he hid behind privilege. He wouldn't answer. And Duckworth called it what it was, hiding, not governing. Because when you're confident your actions are lawful and moral, you don't hide them behind executive privilege, you defend them in daylight. Her closing remarks were some of the most important words uttered in that hearing. The United States military defends Americans. It does not police them. It protects our freedoms. It does not suppress them. That's not just political rhetoric. It's a constitutional principle. The Posse Comitatus Act was designed specifically to prevent presidents from turning soldiers into domestic enforcers. And yet, under Trump, we've seen that line blurred repeatedly, from Lafayette Square to Portland to Chicago. Duckworth's warning wasn't partisan, it was patriotic. She asked, if we turn the world's finest fighting force against its own people, who will win? And she answered her own question. Not the American people, not our troops, but our global enemies, the ones who benefit when democracy tears itself apart from within. This moment deserves to be remembered, not because it was dramatic, but because it revealed a deeper truth. Democracy is fragile when fear becomes a political tool. The same military that protects our freedoms abroad should never be used to silence them at home. And Duckworth, with her lived sacrifice and moral clarity, reminded America of something too many politicians forget. Patriotism isn't obedience to power, it's loyalty to principle. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Left Lens, where we don't just replay the hearing, we decode the message. Because understanding how power moves is the first step to holding it accountable.